The Guardians of the Galaxy are one of, if not my favorite Marvel group, at least in the comic side of things, so I thought with the announcement of their new book, it's only appropriate to do a ranking of the existing titles that have happened since the Annihilation reboot of the Marvel, well, not reboot, but relaunch of the Marvel cosmic side of things. Going from my least favorite to my favorite, at the bottom we have the run by Lanzing and Kelly. This is the most recent run as of this recording, going from 2023 to 2024. It's also the shortest at only 11 issues total. Despite that, it felt like a slog to get through, and I barely remembered anything from it before going back to it for this video. Characters like Star-Lord and Gamora have really regressed, especially following the runs by both Cates and Ewing. Star-Lord is now back to a more kind of standard MCU-y type version of the character, despite all the character development he just had in Ewing's run. Gamora is now a very self-deprecating version of herself and an alcoholic, and for some reason the alcoholism is being played for laughs more often than it isn't. Drax and Mantis really lean into their movie portrayals. Drax has sort of been like this, though, throughout the entirety of his existence post the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie. The amount that they lean into it varies depending on the run. This one really leans into it more than I'd appreciate. Even though I like the movie depiction, I just don't want that in both the movies and the books. That's just me. Mantis, meanwhile, is steering really hard into it, and she's pretty distracting compared to her prior depictions. Usually she's a pretty intelligent character during her big run in the DNA run, which I'll get to later on. She's like the man in the chair, kind of like running scenes from the home base, where here, she's kind of like haha random funny type of stuff, and it just gets annoying more than anything when she appears. The plot here revolves primarily around Groot being this supposed world destroyer, and obviously the team trying to save innocents and get their friend back. The writing ranges from forgettable to eye-rolling at points. The comedy feels very forced, and the group kind of just feels very stock, like just what you kind of get when you think of generic Guardians of the Galaxy post-movie. The art is fine. Nobody really stands out design-wise. There isn't any point throughout the run that was really distracting for me. It was a serviceable job done on the art side of things. Next up is the run by Brian Michael Bendis. It is the longest at 49 issues, and it's split down into two separate series. The team dip in and out of being Earth-focused defenders, helping them from conflicts like alien invasions with S.W.O.R.D. and getting roped into some Civil War II type stuff with Captain Marvel and all that. It sort of makes them feel like a poor man's extension of the Avengers in some way. They have various temporary members of the team throughout this run, like Iron Man, Captain Marvel. Angela joins the group, making her Marvel Comics debut, jumping from Spawn originally. And then later on you get people like Agent Venom and The Thing, as well as Kitty Pryde becoming more stable members. They aren't there forever, but they're there for an extended amount of time. A few of these feel like they're just here because Bendis wanted to write them more, most notably Iron Man and Captain Marvel. For me, Agent Venom and Angela work a little better. This is Angela's Marvel debut, like I said, so there really isn't any prior characterization that really needs to be preserved. She is a similar type of character as Gamora in this run, although I think it works fine because it's kind of cool to have someone that Gamora can kind of play off of as far as that type of warrior assassin type trope. Agent Venom, meanwhile, has the suit with the alien origin that kind of tethers him to a whole plot that they go through, as well as him having never been in space before, so he's sort of like a POV character, where everybody else has been in space multiple times, even the sub-in members like The Thing or Kitty. They've been in space multiple times prior to this due to wacky comic shenanigans, so it's nice kind of having someone that's a little fresh to the whole scene. Kitty Pryde's inclusion in this story follows a crossover that involved the Guardians and the X-Men, although on the Guardian side of things, there's absolutely no build-up in their book to this event. It just shows up and it happens. And from that point on, following her inclusion, a lot of the stories that the Guardians get involved in are just things that sort of just happen. The first half has an ongoing plot involving Peter's father, Jason, and a group of power players attacking Earth, and eventually Peter aligning with his father's people. Plus a story that brings back Richard Rider's Nova, which I'm all for because Richard is a very cool character to me. Part 2, meanwhile, is just a scatter shot between Kree accusers showing up trying to kill Gamora, rescuing Angela from a planet, being roped into Civil War II junk on Earth, and the series ends with a bunch of heroes curb-stomping Thanos, with probably the most, I don't really have time for this type of outro for a run, at least the biggest example of that I can recall in recent memory. To its credit, there are one-off issues that I really like, focusing on one or two individual members of the team. Groot has one, Angela has one, Gamora has one. I think they're very nice, but in the grand scheme of things, they're there just to kind of flesh out some stuff. It doesn't really progress the plot at all. The art is pretty consistent considering the amount of people that have illustrated the run, though I will say I'm not a huge fan of the look that Peter is rocking for a chunk of the early part of this series before he switches to more of his default MCU design. Next is Gerry Duggan's run. This run immediately follows Bendis' time on the book. Duggan's run was 19 issues and was part of Marvel's all-new, all-different era in the later 2010s. In this run, we have a storyline where the team get caught up in a situation between the Collector and the Grand Master. The story also later involves the Fraternity of the Raptors, and that carries over into a story where the Guardians end up joining the new Nova Corps. This entire run isn't really the most dramatic as far as grand scale events goes. It's more of a good character-focused run more than anything. I think Drax, Gamora, and Rocket are the ones that shine the most. There is a one-off comic in this about Star-Lord, which I think is nice. The Gamora-focused stuff is related to her time from the late 80s and early 90s with the Soul Gem / Stone, and I just really like that payoff. Also, the art in that little portion of the story is fantastic. Coming off of Bendis' run, this one just feels nice and comfy. It's a little more in line with what you expect from the Guardians of the Galaxy as opposed to like faux Avengers. We also do get an additional member this time too. We have Scott Lang, Ant-Man, joining the team around the halfway point. He isn't really as distracting as characters like Iron Man or Captain Marvel are. He is pretty in line with the fun kind of joke, but, team member aspect that the Guardians have. There is some MCU synergy with Baby Groot being a factor in this, but I think it works pretty well considering the story that they've made to justify that. Overall, Duggan's run isn't anything crazy, but it is a fun read and it has some cool connections if you're a fan of the ongoing cosmic side of the Marvel Universe. At number 3, I have Al Ewing. This is my number 3 technically, but 3 and 2 are more 2A and 2B. In this situation, there isn't a ton really separating the two for me. Ewing's run is great. There's plenty of characters that get shine between Nova, especially Peter, like I mentioned earlier with the character development that he gets here. Moondragon gets a lot of attention, and Drax gets some too. Most of Moondragon's stuff relates to her relationship with Phyla, and also the whole situation of her not being the Moondragon that's originally from this Earth and having to deal with the consequences of that. Drax's story, of course, kind of intertwines with Moondragon a little bit, as it tends to do, as well as his past life aspect, which sometimes gets touched on here and there throughout the cosmic side of things, and I always appreciate it when they do, because sometimes people forget that Drax was originally a human. Nova, meanwhile, is dealing with the fallout of the Nova Corps just imploding once again, because we can never let Richard have any peace or fun in his life. And as I touched on earlier, Peter gets plenty of character development in this run, really kind of elevating Star-Lord from jokey guy to serious team leader type. The scale of this run becomes more grand as it continues on. The second half focuses on things like the politics between the Kree and the Skrulls and a union for both of those sides. We also get some X-Men related stuff connected to the whole House of X things. And the run ends with tying into the last Annihilation event. I think it's handled alright overall. You can kind of grasp what's going on, but the end sort of is a little bumpy as far as just needing some context for what's going on because it's this big crossover, and if you're reading specifically just Guardians, you're not going to get all of that, or at least as much as you would probably want. So overall, story-wise, you get a lot of the stuff that you want from cool cosmic Marvel storytelling here in Ewing's run, but the end suffers from just mandated participations in crossover story events, but it handles it relatively okay. The art in this run overall is very consistent as well. I think it looks pretty cool, and it's just solid. I don't really have much to add to it. At number 2 is Donny Cates' run. I like Cates' run. Like I said, this is kind of a 2A, 2B situation. Objectively, it might not be as good as Ewing's if you're looking at it through a purely analytical eye, but I just like the feel of Cates' run more. Like, there's just something about the way he depicts these characters and how he handles the balance of, having a serious story and also having some fun, lighthearted sci-fi adventure. I think it just really works to Cates' strengths as a writer. The main plot in this story is Thanos is dead, but his consciousness is still out there seeking a new body, and the majority of the galaxy believes that Gamora is the prime candidate for that, so it's a race to basically find Gamora. Along the way, we have Hela as an antagonist, which is always cool in my opinion. The Universal Church of Truth makes its return, which is always cool. Plus, we get some fun additions to the group, as far as the Guardians of the Galaxy is concerned, with characters like Cosmic Ghost Rider and Beta Ray Bill. Complete personal bias, including Beta Ray Bill in your story, is an easy way to get me more on your side than I already am, so I'm always down for him being involved with Guardians-related stories. There's also a plot involving Rocket getting really sick, like physically sick, due to his whole history of being assembled, essentially. And you can kind of see some of that in Guardians 3. There's a little bit of that being adapted in that movie. The Universal Church of Truth plot in this is also kind of similar to the plot in the Guardians of the Galaxy video game. So if you're already aware of those two adaptations, or at least one of them, you can kind of go into this with some expectations, or at least some background knowledge of how the story will handle certain aspects. Not that it's a one-to-one comparison, but the similarities and the adaptation aspect of the story is there. Jeff Shaw's art throughout the story is very good. This run is a little on the short side, only at 13 issues, but he is the only artist to illustrate the entire run, the only time that's happened with any of these Guardians of the Galaxy series. So kudos to him on that, and I like the visual overall, so just good job on the art front. And at number 1, we have Dan Abnett and Andy Lanning. I made a video about this run all on its own, so if you've watched that, it should be no surprise that this is number 1 for me. This run is the foundation that all the others and all media adaptations of the Guardians of the Galaxy essentially stand on. This story spins out of the big Annihilation crossover event in the mid-2000s that I mentioned way back in this video, and this story navigates its way through other events like War of Kings, Realm of Kings, and Secret Invasion. Meanwhile, all of those tie-ins feel completely organic to the story. A lot of that has to do with the whole Realm and War of Kings stuff was penned by Abnett and Lanning as well, so they clearly had a roadmap and knew where that event was going to go and how to organize everything. The Secret Invasion tie-in, meanwhile, isn't super close to the main event going down on Earth with that Secret Invasion story, but it being a cosmic Marvel story, it really helps having some pre-existing stuff with the Skrull so it doesn't feel completely out of left field or anything. During chunks of this story, we see characters separated into different groups like Peter and Jack Flag, Gamora and Adam Warlock, Phyla and Drax, Rocket, Groot, Mantis, and Bug are all in one unit, and it's balanced very well. The run also does a good job at incorporating the prior Guardians teams from the 70s and 90s into this, even though they're from a separate timeline. The main plot of this involves the Universal Church of Truth getting up to shenanigans, kidnapping people, kind of brainwashing them into their whole cult-like aspect to serve their leader, who of course shows up, and if you're a big Adam Warlock fan, you're going to know who he is. If you've played the Guardians game, you're going to be pretty familiar with the stuff going on in this. It's a very expansive story that still manages to keep things all in one place, and if you only read the Guardians side of stuff, you're still going to be completely aware of what's going on. There isn't going to be any point where you're reading and you get really lost or anything like that. It's all self-contained within the Guardians book. Due to this also being a thing spinning out from the big cosmic relaunch with Annihilation, you can go into this run essentially completely blind. There might be some stuff regarding relations with Gamora and Adam Warlock that you might be unsure of, but you can walk into this and not really know too much about these characters and still be pretty in the know of what's going on all the time. The art is consistent despite it going between 3 different artists throughout the run. There is only a couple issues where it really stands out as noticeably different and potentially distracting. So with that being said, I want to thank you for watching or listening up until this point. If you have a favorite Guardians of the Galaxy teammate or just favorite period of the team, let me know in the comments. Maybe I can talk more about that specifically if you're interested. In the future, we got some Batman stuff coming up. I got another Power Rangers thing in the pipeline, so stick around for those later on. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, comment, all the fun algorithm boosting stuff. And I will see you guys in the next video.